I mean, like what Luther says about the Ten Commandments is crazy.
What does
like,
he say?
I mean, he says that when Christ came, right, he didn't just abolish the like ceremonial prescripts and laws. Like he abolished the natural law, the Ten Commandments. Right now, that's complicated to say that because you're like, well, and his followers felt that, and they say, well, what are we supposed to do with those? And he says, well, you should still follow those. And they're like, but why? Well, because it conduces to social order. It's useful. It's practical, right? But those can't be binding on you because through grace you are freed from the law.
It's almost like how Zwingli would talk about the sacraments.
It's crazy.
Or how some Protestants who follow Zwingli would talk about the sacraments. Well, why get baptized?
Yeah.
Well, because he did say to do it, but does it mean anything? Yeah. Well, it's a symbol of the salvation you've accepted. Yeah. Okay, but if I've accepted,
No, that's right. I mean, one of my new apologetical strategies is with people that claim to be Protestants is to first make them convinced.
I love this. So far in this episode, if you claim to be an atheist, here's how I'll school you. Yeah. All right, so if I'm a Protestant, how do you...
Because we accept all these things we think we know.
Yeah.
And my claim as a philosopher is maybe we don't know.
Yeah, all right.
Maybe you don't know what you think.
So someone says I'm a Protestant.
My favorite bumper sticker says, don't believe everything you think.
Well, but then you'll see some that say question all authority, including this. So they know where you're about to go.
Yeah. So I'd say you got to convince me that you're an actual Protestant in a real sense.
Yeah.
So I give them examples of like what Luther thinks or Calvin thinks and say, I know you don't. I already know you. Like you're my friend. You don't believe that, right? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, okay. So far you're a pre-Catholic. That's what you are. Like you believe things that Catholics believe, and you just need to keep believing more things and more dogmas that the Catholic Church teaches, and you become fully Catholic, right? Plus you're baptized, so you're already Catholic in a certain sense anyway, right? And so I say, you need to convince me you're a Protestant. And they say, well, I don't believe in this Catholic doctrine because blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what's the doctrine again? And they explain what it is, and it's something the Catholic Church doesn't teach.
But this surely isn't all Protestants. I mean, Protestant reformers differ from each other as well.
Absolutely.
So you can be, I think it's sufficient to be a Protestant just to say that I protest the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And even if you disagree with Luther, Zwingli, Calvin.
Why? You need a reason for that. So then my next move is to say, instead of like taking yourself as a Christian now and going back in time and finding that you can believe more and more and more back, imagine you began in the beginning. You're on a boat. It's going forward in time. Now, when do you get off? That's the right response. Jesus started a community with these apostles.
Yeah.
You're in that community. Now you've got to justify getting out of it, not going back towards it. And so imagine yourself in history going forward. And so to me, then you have to explain, well, I'd go with this heretical group, or I'd go with that heretical group, or what the Catholics call heresy. Heretic. And you've got to justify the move away from your community and your membership in the community. And that just takes me to Newman's advice, right? And those who are deep in history cease to be Protestant. I tried this strategy out recently, and one of the objections is, well, the Catholic Church was invented by Constantine when it became legal. And I said, that's ridiculous. I held that view when I was an undergrad.
Did you?
Yeah,
really?
When I was an undergrad, I thought that was about right. And so we needed to do church like it was described in the New Testament, like these smaller churches, house churches, the Bible, right? Songs, hymns, like that's the model that the Bible teaches. So that's what we should. This other thing is totally different and foreign. And it's like these excrescences are attached on, right? These barnacles are on the boat now.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, let's look at history. Let's look at the most early records we have of people a generation after the apostles and then a generation after that. They all believe in apostolic succession. They accept the real presence, right? They accept the authority of the Bishop of Rome.
Prayers to saints.
Right? Yes,
baptismal regeneration.
There's so many obvious Catholic things. No. Maybe the external forms now look different because they're not being persecuted actively and they're not underground.
But the argument is that when Constantine made Christianity legal, you've got all these pagans rushing into the church to make a buck and brought all their heritage.
Which is the exact opposite. Like Andrew Jones talks about, like, well, when it became legal, where did all those Christians come from? Right? The people that now are filling those churches, they were there before that too. So what, did they just suddenly change beliefs when Constantine, he didn't say to believe anything. He wasn't promulgating doctrines. So those people were already believing these things, and they were just underground.
Yeah.
So to me, that's an example of kind of there's a myth that is an obstacle to a Protestant that can be removed. Now, I agree with you; it doesn't work for all Protestants, especially those who have thought very carefully and have tried to justify their Protestantism. Now, there was one Protestant, I forget, he taught at Princeton. I forget his name, and he said, if you're a Protestant intellectual, and you haven't wrestled with the intricacies and all the arguments for Catholic belief, then you don't deserve to be a Protestant intellectual. You've got to wrestle with all those intricate arguments and biblical interpretations and and this whole system.
Would you say the converse is true, that you can't say you're a Catholic intellectual unless you've wrestled with the intricacies of Protestantism?
I think there's an asymmetry, right? I think that, again, like you're on that boat.
Yeah.
Right. And
so there's no need.
I don't think there's a need.
Because it came after.
I think if you're an intellectual, you should know something about it.
Right.
But I don't think you're a bad Catholic for not.
Right.
Right.
Just like I don't need to understand Mormonism to reject it.
Yeah. You just need to know enough to be like, okay, that's not Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
If you like that clip, be sure to like and subscribe. Cheers.